Lindsay here, the Frugal Crafter. Welcome to Stamp School. We're in week 9. We did 8 weeks of all the basic supplies, and we really stretched our materials, but now we're going to branch out a little bit and into the world of heat embossing. But first, I want to let you know that this video is brought to you by artneco.com. We're going to be using their beautiful bookmark stamps today. I'll put links in the video description on where you can find all the groovy things from them I used, and also a way for you to save 10% on your order. All you got to do is mention the Frugal Crafter, and you will either get 10% off or free shipping if your order's over 50. Whichever discount is greater is the one you're going to get. These tassels are from Art Neco, so are these beautiful bookmark sleeves, and they've got more stamps than you can even imagine. And the papers, we're going to use some of their washi paper today. It's gorgeous, and I really think you're going to enjoy shopping there if you like Asian influenced art. So the basic things you're going to need for heat embossing are a heat gun. Now, a hairdryer is not going to work. It's my most asked question anytime I do embossing. You'll want a heat gun. Now, this is the Marvy embossing tool. It is model 2500. I've had this one for about 4 or 5 years, and before that I had another one for about 10 years. And just eventually wore out after daily use for, 8 to 10 years. It happens. You can also get heat guns at like Harbor Freight and other hardware stores, and like I got a backup at Harbor Freight for like $6 on sale. The thing though with those is they get much hotter, so you have to use them on low. And also here, like the tip of this is enclosed, so if I bang this on my hand by accident after I turn it off, I'm not going to burn myself. But if I did that with the Harbor Freight one or any one that has the metal at the top, it will burn you. It's very hot, and if you got kids or pets around, I really recommend spending a few extra dollars and getting the stamping one. This was about $25. You could even use a coupon if your big box store carries it. I've only used the Marvy ones. If anyone has a recommendation of a heat gun, please leave it in the video description and let people know how you liked it and how much it was, and then we can all kind of share from each other's experience. You're also going to need some embossing powder, and probably the most versatile one for you to pick up first would be clear, and then after that maybe like a gold or a silver or a black for sentiments, for holidays and things like that. I'm going to show you how I store my embossing powder because I do have a lot. I'm going to set that out of the way. I keep mine in a shallow drawer, and I have them upside down so I can see the colors. And a lot of my embossing powders I've picked up over the years, a lot have come from yard sales, and most of them were just fine. They do have a shelf life, especially if you live down south. Embossing powder can go bad. I think moisture gets to it. I've noticed like this one, I just tried it out earlier and it was not working well, and I think it's because I have it in this container instead of the screw top jar, the airtight jar that it would come in. So I think that I'm gonna have to toss that because it didn't seem to give me that shiny look, so beware of that. Embossing powders that have been stored in baggies don't seem to do as well as ones that are stored in their original containers. Sometimes I'll take my clear and put it in like a Tupperware container because I use it so much, but I would if you're not going to use it every day, I would keep it in the containers that it comes in. Excuse my dust, guys. I'm sorry about that. There is a very affordable way to get embossing powders. I know my local Joann's had these sets of 12, I believe, either 12 or 24. I'm not sure. But they were quite affordable using a coupon. I think Stampendous made them, but like there was a set that was all pastels, and it had like a solid and also like a sparkly version. So you can get glitter embossing powders, iridescent embossing powders. One that are really fun are called tinsels, and they're really nice for like holidays. Like they don't give you a great detail, but they will give you really fun, like a sparkly effect. So the chunkier the embossing powder, the less detail. So what I want to do is show you a couple powders here. This is ultra thick embossing powder here, and you can see it's quite chunky. Let me just get in there. Hopefully you can see. Maybe you can't. Maybe if I pour a little bit. You see the granules are quite big there. I'm just going to pour that. Maybe you can see on my hand. Okay. Another chunky one would be Judy Kin's Amazing Glaze. This one might even be chunkier than, I think this one's even a little chunkier. Pour a little bit of that. Looks like sugar. Okay, that's thick. Now you'd use these for when you want to like do an all over clear coat on something, like maybe you wanted to make something look like a stained glass window and you wanted it to have a really thick coating of clear shiny, or you're making paper beads and you want them to be really shiny. This is what you use. If you want a really detailed image though, you want a finer powder, and this is a detailed embossing powder. And I'll just pour a little bit here on my hand, and look, it looks like I don't know, it's just a very fine powder. It's like maybe like baking powder or something. It's just very thin. If you look at how fine that is versus how chunky that is, you can see how you're going to get a much finer detail from that versus that, because when the chunks melt, they're going to leave behind a lot more powder, a lot more gloss. So I'm going to show you a difference between the fine and the chunky, and I'm not going to put this back in either of them because I've got them mixed now. I'll have to waste that, or I'm just going to put it in the trash. So here on these two little samples here, I stamped bamboo. This one I did with the thick, and you can see the branches are thicker. I have a lot more contrast because I did a resist here. And on this one, I used the thin powder. I have much thinner lines. It wasn't a highly detailed stamp. It was like a brush type stamp, but you can still get the idea between the thick and the detailed powder. We are going to use detailed silver powder, and most of your regular powder is kind of closer to detail. It will say like glaze or thick or ultra thick or something on the container if it's more of a resist type embossing powder that's really thick. But we're going to use both kinds so you can kind of see the difference. We're going to start off with a piece of watercolor paper. You can also use cardstock if you don't have watercolor paper. That's absolutely fine for this technique. And I'm going to stamp. I'm going to move some of the stuff out of the way. Here are just a couple other just resist examples. On this one, I stamped this in the fine powder, and then I colored around it loosely with markers, and then I sprayed it with water, and I just and since it was on watercolor paper, the colors just flowed, and I got that really fun look. And that's kind of what I did here too, and I was just kind of playing around with it. I used some Peerless paints on this just to play a little bit. So we're going to start off, and we're just going to use a couple background stamps. I've just got these little ginkgo leaves, and there's also a couple different types of ink that you can use. You can use any slow drying ink. This is an embossing ink from Inkadinkadoo, and it has a felt top on it, and then it's got the cotton pad in there holding the embossing juice, and this is a sticky, slow drying thin ink. Now we also have spongier type ink pads, and this one is one that I use a lot, and I just refill with glycerin and water when I'm done, when it dries out. Sometimes I'll get embossing powder in it and I'll have to rinse it all out, wash it out, and then since the pad is wet already, I'll just put a little glycerin in there to make it juicy. I find the spongy ones work better on more detailed images, and the stickier ones with the felt pads that are less juicy work better on solid images. So we're going to start by using this. I mean, really, you don't need to get two different pads, but that's just what I found with some of my observing here. So what I did was I just took the unmounteds and I put one on each side of this block, and these are also by About Art Accents. Since I'm going to build a background, I'm going to start with my bold. Now oh my gosh, I can't believe we're just now stamping, and I've been gabbing all this time, but I just wanted to give you an overview of heat embossing if you haven't done it before. So you probably can't really see where I've stamped too well because it's white, it's clear ink on white paper. But, and sometimes you'll get embossing ink and it'll have a slight tint to it so you can see where you're stamping, and that might be a good idea. I think Top Boss has they're a brand that does embossing powder, and I think they have like a ink that's like slightly tinted blue or pink or something. Alright, so now I've got the background stamped, and I'm going to take a piece of scrap paper, and I am going to put some, I think I'll use the UT, that works really good. This is Ranger's Ultra Thick Embossing Enamel, or you can get, it's also called Ultra Thick Embossing Powder, or you can use any white embossing, clear or white embossing powder. Clear is a little more useful because if you have colored pigment ink pads, it will, oh, I waited too long to sprinkle it. If you wait too long to sprinkle it on, look what happens. It doesn't stick. You see that? Maybe I'll go with my juicier ink. I'll go with my my other stuff here. You also want a fine brush so that you can brush away powder if you need to, in cases just like this, or if you have some stray powder on your design. Let's try stamping that again and working a little bit quicker. I think it's good to leave the mistakes in, because then if you have a problem, you can be like, oh, what did Lindsay do when that happened to her? You know, sometimes being a dingbat is actually a good thing. So this time I'm going to work really quick because I want to make sure that my ink doesn't dry on me. And since, you know, we're using smaller stamps to fill this up, we have to be a little quick. And let's go, just kind of scoop that up and shake it around there. There we go. So you can see how it's sticking to my design now. There we go. Okay, so you can see that the design is pretty well covered. Okay, with ink, if I had any stray spots, I could go in with a soft brush and flick them away. I do have some areas where it didn't cover too well, but I'll kind of go over that in a minute. So when you go to emboss, you want to turn on your heat gun for a few seconds and let it heat up. And then you're going to heat an area until it starts to get glossy. You can see it's starting to melt there. And as soon as it melts, you want to move on, because if you leave it in one area too long, it'll over melt and scorch your paper. It can make the embossing powder get too liquid and absorb into the paper. And if you feel like you're holding it for a long time and it's just not melting, there could be a couple problems. One problem could be your embossing powder's gone bad. If you live down south, or if it's really old, that may be the culprit. Or if you've had it in a very humid area. I mean, I store all my stuff in the basement, so it's pretty humid, but the only problem I've had is powder that's come from down south, or that I've got in a yard sale and I just don't know where it's come from. So, you know, I wouldn't go too crazy. I wouldn't buy huge amounts, because a little bit lasts a long time, because you go ahead and you dump any extra back into the container when you're done. Now let's say that I really wanted to fill in some of the design. I could use like I could take like a water brush with some embossing ink, and I could try refilling that in and then resprinkling, making a bigger resist. They make embossing markers, clear ones and colored ones, so that you can like draw or write a sentiment and then quickly emboss it. So what I'm going to do is try hitting those areas again with the powder. There, so now you can see that I have some embossing powder stuck on those areas where I just added the glycerin, or embossing ink too. And I'm just going to go ahead and remelt those areas. It would still be a cool effect even if I didn't. I'm just trying to show you this so that you know what to do if you get yourself in a situation where you're not exactly sure if you can save your project. Okay. Now we're just going to let that cool for a second before we do anything else. So while we're doing that, we're going to replace that into the jar it came from. So I'm going to open up my jar of UT, which somebody told me that they've renamed their, instead of them calling it UT or Ultra Thick Embossing Enamel, they're now calling it Ultra Thick Embossing Powder. So if you have a little confusion at the store, just it might be called powder. And if it's ultra thick, it's not going to be detail. If it's if it doesn't say anything, it's probably detail. Now let's do this while now that it's cool. I'm just going to put a silicone mat here, and I'm going to show you something kind of fun that you can do with either your ink pads or your markers, whatever you already have, whatever you've been using, if you don't have both. I think I'll do it with the markers just because I have them right here. I am going to just scribble a bunch of colors down. I love that we can keep using our same stuff over and over and over again. I want to get some purple in there because I know the paper I'm going to use is going to have some purple in it. Now, if you're not using markers, just smush an ink pad down. It's like you're back in grade school, isn't it? Coloring, it's fun. Okay. Now you can spray this with water or shimmer spray. I'm going to use silver embossing powder, so I thought it'd be cool to use my shimmer spray, but you go ahead and use water if that's what you have. Ooh, you can start to see the colors. So pretty. And then, so this is why I said it's okay to do cardstock, because we don't have to worry about how our colors are going to blend. I'm just going to smoosh that in there and see what we have, and you can start to see it's resisting our design. So the thicker embossing powders work really well for that, because it gives you such a bold design. So this is just going to give us a really fun metallic silver resist. I'm thinking I'd kind of like that a little bit darker and a little bit more colorful, but I think once it dries, it's going to be a little more colorful. I think that silver is just reflecting a lot of the light right now. So we're going to let that dry. I actually have one already prepared to use in our card, so we're going to go ahead and use that, and I think I'll just set that I think I'll just set this whole thing on the floor out of the way, but I just wanted to kind of show you how cool that looks when you do a resist. Okay, I had a little change of plans. I was having some trouble with my silver embossing powder, I think because it's kind of old, that it may have gone bad. So I'm actually going to use purple, and it's a kind of lavender color, because I think in the background that I made that would be really pretty with that lavender and also the purple kind of wine color background paper I'm going to use. So I'm going to load up my ink pad. I'm going to load up my stamp with ink. and just make sure I have it really well inked so that the embossing powder will stick to the paper. And oh, if you, I did rub the paper with this. This is just cornstarch in a just a little sewn up pillow that I made. It helps take the any moisture or static off of the paper, so the embossing powder will only stick where I want it to stick. Of course, the rate I'm going today, if it sticks to anything, I'm going to be doing well. I've been having a little rough time here. Alright, now quickly, while the ink is still wet, I want to put on my powder, and go generous with it because you're going to put all the leftover right back into the container. You want to make sure you get it coated really well. Oh, there we go. That looks nice. And then if you have any extra that you think is going to disturb your design, you can go in there with a soft brush and brush it away. I'm going to be cutting this out, so I'm not too concerned with that, but if you do have any flecks where you don't want it, go ahead and remove them with a brush. Let me grab my gun here, warm it up for a couple seconds, and then go ahead and heat up the design, and you'll be able to see it happen a lot better here. As it melts, the color becomes more opaque, and it stands out a lot more. Alright, I think that's pretty well melted. Now I just need to get a pair of long bladed scissors to cut this out. Oh, but you know what I should do first is place the powder back into the jar so it doesn't go to waste or get spilled. The only thing I don't like about these inexpensive ones from Joann's is that the it seems like you have more powder when you're done, and it doesn't all want to fit back in there, and the really skinny tubes like that kind of want to tip over when you're putting them back in, so just be aware of that. But other than that, I just really like that. I like that multi-pack. It's such a good deal if you're just getting started. Okay, now we're going to cut this out and we're going to put together our bookmark. It's like the longest bookmark video ever. I'm thinking that I might be bookmark challenged because the laminator ate my bookmark last week, and I spent way too long developing this project for what it is. Oh, you know that. You guys have days like that when it's like, I've been working on this bookmark for 4 hours. Why doesn't it look any nicer? Alright. Oh, that does look kind of pretty. And I want to use, let's see, this is the paper I want to use. I wonder, boy, it'd be nice if I had room to mount that on that paper. It's so pretty. Let me see. I've got a bigger piece of that. I'm wondering if I'd have just a little room. Let me brush off all that dust. I could use that purple tassel with it and cover up my ink pad before I get embossing powder stuck to it. That happens a lot. Alright, so I really like that. I think, let me see how big those sleeves are. Oh yeah, I got a little room. I can definitely mat that on there and give it a little bit of extra room, I think, and that way I'll have that pretty design on the back. So why don't I do that? When I'm doing a bunch of these resist like backgrounds or bookmarks, I'll make up a bunch at once and set them outside in the sun to help them dry a little bit quicker. I'm just going to go right, just give it a little bit of a border with that wine color. It's so pretty. I really don't want to cover up much of this, and actually I'd use my gold shimmer spray to liquefy the markers on this one, and I really like how that looks. So, and now all that is, it's just some like gold eyeshadow mixed in a bottle of water, pretty much. Or if you have liquid metallic watercolors, you can use that as well. Use what you have. If you have Pearl-Ex, you can make your own with Pearl-Ex. It's just a lot of different ways to do that. And I'm going to put that right on like that, I think, with some foam tape. Just to give it a little bit of dimension. I don't want it too thick because it is going in a book. The nice thing about the bookmark sleeves is that since we have used water-based materials, if anything, if the bookmark gets wet, it's not going to transfer onto our pages. You could also laminate it. Hopefully your laminator won't eat your bookmark like mine did last week, or you could use packing tape. The nice thing about the sleeves though is you don't have to worry about not getting it right the first time. With packing tape, if you stick it down, it's stuck. With these you can kind of pull them out and readjust if you do something wrong. It's forgiving. And they're not very expensive too, which is nice. Or you could put a different bookmark in there too. Let me make sure I put this right side up. And there, I think that's pretty. And now I'm just going to slide this in to my bookmark sleeve. Now you can just put a tassel in through the hole that's pre-punched on the top, but what I like to do is actually kind of tuck that down so they don't have this flimsy waggly part up there. So I'm just going to trim that a little bit on each side and then tuck this flap in the back. Just like so. You can tape up the edge if you want to. I'm not going to do that this time. And then you just need to punch a hole for a tassel. These tassels and bookmark sleeves are available at artneco.com very affordably, or of course you can make your own. Now I'm just going to put the fold of my looped tassel in here, pull it through the other end, and then just put the tassel through the loop, and it really doesn't get much easier than that. It's such a professional look. It'd be such a pretty gift to put in a card, or even using it as an embellishment on a card, and then they have something to keep afterwards. Now in this one I made a little homemade washi tape, which is basically what I do with the scraps of these cut-offs of beautiful paper from Art Neco. I just run it through a Xyron or put adhesive on the back and I use it as washi tape. It just looks so great, and so that's what I used up here just to seal that shut, and I think that looks kind of pretty too. So there you have it. I hope you tried this out. It's a lot of fun. Embossing will really give your stamping a whole new depth, and it makes it more fun, and it'll keep you interested in this hobby for years to come. Thank you so much for watching. Please give me a thumbs up and subscribe. Check out our sponsor artneco.com. Details in the video description. And until next time, happy crafting.